So, when we try to think about like what value we were bringing, we bring that market, and that LA market is big, but we bring a lot of stuff to all the Olympic sports. I don't know if you USC people, you may not be hearing about it, but like the Big Ten people are salivating over the idea of like baseball games at USC and UCLA in March. Mm-hmm. In fact, I saw some joking of people being like, well, why don't we just play like Nebraska, Minnesota at USC between our games against USC and UCLA? Rather than under a foot of snow, we'll just as long as they're there, we'll just play an extra game. So I think you're gonna see a lot of that. The money, everyone's covered the money, everyone's covered the competition, but there are other things that are phenomenal for USC and UCLA as well. For example, the Big Ten there's a Big Ten conference center in Chicago where they have all these academic conferences organized throughout the conference. They do things like they have mentees from each other's schools to help specialists in PhD research. They're literally hiring each other's professors and dealing with each other's graduate students in ways that are enormously advantageous to us. UCLA gets a little bit of that already through the UC system, but we don't really. And so for us to now be into this network of literally the most elite, huge research institutions in the country is, I think, a huge, huge value for us. And I hope that they can patch up the Pac-12. Like I think the world is stronger with a stronger Pac-12. They are a little bit of the Lusitania, and we sort of blew a couple holes in the side. But I think that they can fix it, and I think that they can survive. I think they can survive because, quite honestly, and Big 12 Twitter, they're going to get Twitter, fingers ready to just rage tweet at me. But like the Pac-12 schools don't really fit in the Big 12, and I've said this for a decade.
No, they don't.
I love my Big 12 friends. By the way, I was on Sikkim like yesterday, guys. Like I love the Big 12 guys, but it's just they're like, it's like your friend that you don't really want to be your roommate. We all have those. And they don't want you to be your roommate either. Like I have laughed. John Kurtz has been exposed to like Oregon and Utah Twitter and is like, oh my God, I don't think we want this. And it's like, hey, no, you're right, John. You really probably don't. I'm just kidding. I love my Ducks. I only make fun of teams that I love. But I think the Pac-12, the Pac-10, whatever it's going to be, Pac-11, Pac-12 will survive on its own. I think every day that goes by right now, we're getting closer and closer to that. I don't know what you're hearing, Matt. Is that?
Well, I just have questions for you. One is, how did so many of us, what were so many of us as commentators, pundits, observers, and I include myself in this group, what were we all missing in terms of Oregon and assuming that Oregon would be on the move? Because, we think about the facilities, we think about Phil Knight's money, we think about the excellent football track record and being involved in a lot of big games over the past 10 years, far more than USC, for instance. What were we missing about Oregon? What were we overestimating?
So for one thing,
the Ducks,
if you think about T. Boone Pickens at Oklahoma State, who used to be the guy who would write the check for whatever Oklahoma State needed, and then he died all of a sudden, and those checks ended. I love Phil Knight, but he's 84. He's sort of in legacy mode. He's not running the Oregon athletic department, and so he's not going to be around forever. And probably when he passes, I'm sure will lots to stand. His by the way, he's given, I think, equally to Oregon and to Stanford. By the way, we forget.
Yeah, he's given a lot to Stanford. Yes. Yeah,
he went to both schools, but Oregon adds a lot of like brand to the young kids, but it's not a esteemed institution like the others. Oregon's a very good school, but Oregon was never in the academic caliber as the rest of the conference. Which is ironic because in the 50s, Oregon was the haughty academic one, even though they had like open admissions. Like you could just sign your name in the paper and you could go. One of the conditions actually for Oregon and Oregon State to get into the Pac-12 is they actually had to start using admissions criteria. And they were not happy about that, but it was a huge level. Academics matter and research matters, and who these institutions really want to partner with matters. If you look here, this is the Pac-5 with Oregon. You got USC, UCLA, Stanford, Cal, Washington. These are like just not just Oregon's a great school, but Oregon's on par with Rutgers and Nebraska, not with Michigan and Ohio State and Northwestern. And so for as far as the institution goes, Oregon also doesn't add a lot of market. You guys have all seen the TV data and stuff like that. They have a lot of fab fans around the country, and that's awesome, right? Like most schools would kill to have that. Oregon is the number one fan base in the Pac-12 by far, more than us right now, especially while we stink. But they're not really moving the needle. They're not moving the needle institutionally. They're not moving the needle academically. You're not clamoring to be like, what I really, really, really want is for Oregon's professors to mentor my grad students if I'm Michigan or Northwestern. If you're a chemistry or a physics professor at Michigan or Northwestern, do you want your kids to maybe now be able to get into Lawrence Berkeley Lab? Like, oh yes, you'd kill for that. Like, I mean, UCLA, same thing. UCLA Medical Center is one of the best in the world. All the stuff at USC is phenomenal. I mean, all of these are things that they are clamoring, that those presidents clamor for. They don't clamor for like, oh my gosh, what if we could all have jerseys that cause cirrhosis of the eye? That's Oregon's like number one thing. And that's cool. That is great for recruiting. It's won them a lot of games, but it doesn't move the needle institutionally. Ducks, don't at me. I love your school. I would say let you in. I put you on the chart. Just to be clear, Oregon Ducks.
Let me ask you
another. I'd let you in.